The moment I knew something was deeply wrong wasn't when he screamed at me. It wasn't when he disappeared for days without explanation. It wasn't even when he called me crazy for remembering promises he made. It was when, all of a sudden, unexpectedly, he was kind again. And I felt pathetically grateful for the bare minimum. My thought process was, how did I become this person? Hey, this is Tiffany with Tea with Tiffany. In my practice as a therapist, I've heard this all too many times. I've worked with hundreds of intelligent and successful people who kept falling for the same toxic relationship patterns despite knowing better. Today, I'm going to show you exactly why your brain betrays you within these relationships and how you can finally break the cycle that keeps you addicted to people who hurt you. Here's what we'll cover. Number one, the 3 unconscious patterns that make you a magnet for narcissists. Number 2, the childhood experiences that program these patterns in your brain. And number 3, how to rewire that attraction system, and then you being able to spot what healthy love is. But first, let me tell you something crucial. If you've ever laid awake at night wondering, what's wrong with me? After another relationship with someone who made you feel crazy, worthless, or invisible, it's not because you're weak or broken. It's because your brain is doing exactly what it's programmed to do. So let's start off with pattern number 1, mistaking intensity for intimacy. The first unconscious pattern that attracts you to a narcissist is mistaking intensity for intimacy. Have you ever met someone and felt an immediate and powerful connection, like you've known them forever? That feeling that makes you think this must be meant to be. I had a client, let's call her Jessica, who described every toxic relationship the same way. It always felt like home. But here's the truth. Jessica grew up with a mother whose love was unpredictable. Some days, her mother would emotionally withdraw, and other days be completely absent. What Jessica's brain learned was that love feels like an emotional roller coaster. So when she met partners who created the same intensity, those highs and lows, that uncertainty, her brain said, this feels familiar. This must be love. But intensity isn't intimacy. Real intimacy builds slowly through consistent respect, vulnerability, and trust. It doesn't feel like a drug. Guess what? It feels like peace. But here's a test I want you to take. When you meet someone new, I want you to ask yourself, am I drawn to them because they make me feel calm and safe, or because they make me feel excited and anxious? If you agree with the latter, that means your brain must be confusing intensity with connection. I had another client who described his attraction to his narcissistic ex as electric. When he started dating someone else who was kind and consistent, he worried something was wrong because he didn't feel the same charge. 6 months later, he realized that what he was feeling wasn't boredom. It was emotional safety for the first time. Let's be honest, our culture romanticizes toxic relationships. We call jealousy passion. We call control protection. We call anxiety butterflies. And then we wonder why we keep ending up with people who make us feel like shit. Pattern number 2, the validation void. The second pattern that makes you vulnerable to narcissists is what I call the validation void. If you grew up never quite feeling good enough, maybe your achievements were overlooked, your emotions dismissed, or your needs treated as burdens, you developed a hunger for validation that narcissists are experts at exploiting. During the love bombing phase, a narcissist will make you feel more seen, special, and more understood than anyone else ever has. They'll praise exactly the things that you're most insecure about. They'll seem to value exactly what other people have dismissed in you. It feels finally like getting water after a lifetime of thirst. I had a client whose father consistently criticized her appearance. When she met a man who called her the most beautiful woman he's ever seen, she was hooked. The fact that he later used her appearance as a weapon by criticizing her, comparing her to other women, it almost didn't matter to her. She was addicted to those moments where he would just build her back up. Here's another test. When someone compliments you, does it make you feel like a nice addition to your already secure sense of self, or like oxygen you desperately need to survive? If it's the latter, you may have a validation void that makes you vulnerable to people who uses praise as a tool of control. And let me be clear, this isn't just women problems. I've worked with successful male CEOs, some athletes, and professionals who fell apart when their partner withheld validation. I had a client tell me once, I'd rather she scream at me than act like I don't matter. That's the validation boy talking. Pattern number 3, the comfort zone illusion. The third and most powerful pattern is what psychologists call repetition compulsion, but I call it the comfort zone illusion. Your brain constantly is scanning for patterns it recognizes. When you grew up with conditional love, criticism disguised as care, emotional neglect punctuated with brief moments of connection, your brain felt these patterns are normal. So when you meet someone who recreates the familiar dynamics, your brain doesn't send off red flags. Instead, it says, this feels right. I had a client whose mother would give her the silent treatment whenever she was disappointed. And when her boyfriend began to do the same thing, she didn't recognize it as emotional abuse. You know what? She just thought it was a normal relationship problem. The most heartbreaking part is when she dated a man who communicated openly instead of withdrawing, it felt wrong to her. Her brain had no reference point of healthy conflict resolution. So here's another test. Think about your current or past relationship. Do they recreate emotional patterns from your childhood? Do you find yourself playing the same role you did as a child, the peacemaker, the achiever, or the invisible one? Now we're going to talk about the childhood experiences that created these patterns. Now let's talk about how these patterns get programmed in your brain in the first place. There are 4 childhood experiences that usually create the perfect storm for narcissistic attractions later on in life. The first one is conditional love. You learn that love depends on your performances. Maybe it was your grades, your achievements, your appearance, or even your behavior. You learn that love must be earned rather than freely given. This makes you vulnerable to people who uses love as a reward and punishment system. Number 2, emotional neglect. Sometimes what didn't happen is as important as what did. If your emotional needs were ignored or dismissed, you learn that your feelings don't matter. This makes you tolerate emotional neglect in all adult relationships. Number 3, parentification. If you had to be the emotional caretaker for a parent, managing their feelings, keeping the peace, being their confidant, you learned that relationships mean taking care of others at the expense of yourself. This attracts you to partners who expect you to manage their emotions while ignoring yours. Number 4, intermittent reinforcement. If the love and attention you received growing up was unpredictable, sometimes warm and loving, where other times it was cold and distant, your brain became wired for this pursuit. This creates the strongest attachment pattern of all, making you particularly vulnerable to the hot and cold dynamics of a narcissistic relationship. Now, I want to be clear, this isn't about blaming parents. Most were doing the best they could with what they knew and how they experienced it themselves. This is about understanding, not blame. But understand those roots are crucial because you can't change patterns you don't recognize. And here's the thing about childhood experiences. They don't have to be dramatic to be damaging. You don't have to have a lifetime movie backstory to develop these patterns. Sometimes it's as simple as a parent who was physically present but emotionally absent, or a family who valued achievement over authenticity, or parents who stayed together for the kids but modeled toxic relationship patterns. This is the insidious damage that happens in families who look perfect from the outside. The science behind addiction. What makes these patterns so hard to break isn't just the psychology, it's the neurobiology. When you're in a relationship with the narcissist, your brain actually becomes addicted to the chaos. Here's what happens. During the love bombing phase, your brain is flooded with dopamine, the same neurotransmitter released during any drug use. You feel euphoric, special, chosen. Then when they withdraw or devalue you, your brain goes into withdrawal, creating intense anxiety and craving. When they return with affection and attention, even briefly, You get another dopamine hit. Relief, pleasure, and hope. This creates what scientists call a trauma bond, a biochemical attachment to a person who's hurting you. One client described it perfectly. I knew he was destroying me, but I still checked my phone 50 times a day, hoping for a message. And when he finally texts, it felt like taking a breath after being underwater. This isn't weakness. This is your brain's response to intermittent reinforcement, the most addictive reward pattern known to psychology. It's the same mechanism that makes gambling so addictive. Now, understanding this biological component is crucial because it explains why just leave isn't helpful advice. You're not just leaving a person, you are detoxing from a biochemical addiction. And let me tell you, I've seen brilliant people, doctors, lawyers, yes, even therapists, stay in these relationships far longer than what makes logical. This is because addiction isn't logical, it's neurological. How to rewire your attraction system. Now for the most important part on how to break these patterns and rewire your attraction system to recognize healthy love. Step 1, create a relationship inventory. First, make a list of your significant relationships, both romantic and friendships. For each, note how did it begin? Was it a slow build or intense start? What attracted you most to this person? What patterns repeated across the relationship? And how did it end? Look for common threads. One client did this exercise and every relationship she had followed the exact same pattern. Intense beginning, walking on eggshells in the middle, explosive at the end. This awareness alone was transformative. Step 2, identify your emotional triggers. Narcissists are experts at finding your emotional buttons. So make a list of the moments whenever you feel desperate for approval, afraid of abandonment, responsible for others' feelings, guilty for having needs, or confused about your own reality. These are your vulnerability points, the places where your boundaries are the weakest. When you know your triggers, you can prepare for them instead of being blindsided. I had a client who realized she would agree to almost anything when someone used a disappointing tone, the same tone her mother had used. Once she identified this trigger, she would pause when she heard that tone and ask herself, am I agreeing because I want to or because I feel triggered? And here's where I need to really be clear. Your triggers aren't your fault, but they are your responsibility. No one else can heal them for you, not even a perfect partner. Step number 3, practice the boring test. This is my favorite tool for clients recovering from narcissistic relationships. When you meet someone new and feel that exciting pull, ask yourself, would this person be interesting to me if they are emotionally stable, consistent, and respectful? Now listen, if your answer is no, then it may mean what attracts you is drama, the challenge, or unpredictability. And guess what? That's your old wiring talking. One client laughed when she realized that she was only attracted to the date when he was slightly dismissive. When he was fully present and attentive, she felt nothing. That was a huge wake-up call for her. The truth is, healthy relationships might feel boring at first if you're only used to chaos. But that doesn't mean they are boring. And yes, it means your attraction system needs to be recalibrated. Yes, I'm telling you, if meeting someone feels like the beginning of a movie, complete with soundtracks and butterflies, run. That's not love at first sight. That's trauma recognizing their trauma. Next, the path forward. If you recognize these patterns in yourself, I want you to know something important. This awareness is not a burden, it's your freedom. You didn't choose these patterns. They were programmed into you before you had anything to say in the matter. But now that you see them, you can change them. I've watched hundreds of clients break these cycles. The woman who only felt chemistry with unavailable men, she's now in a healthy, loving relationship that feels both secure and exciting. The man who kept finding partners who criticized him like his mother did, he's learning to validate himself instead of seeking it out from people who withholds it. So change is possible. Your brain can learn new patterns. And here's what I want you to remember. You're not broken. You're not damaged goods. You're not too much or not enough. You are a human being whose brain adapted to survive your specific childhood environment. That adaptation helps you then, but it's hurting you now, and you can change it. If you found this video helpful, I want to invite you to a free webinar where we will all be diving deeper into concepts and giving you specific exercises to rewire your attraction system. The link is in the description below. But I want to warn you, the slots are going to be limited, so I want you to sign up before they're all gone. If you want more content like this, real talk about relationships without sugarcoating, please subscribe to Tea with Tiffany and ring the notification bell so you don't miss future videos. If any of this video resonates with you, go ahead and drop a comment below because you never know if your story is going to help someone else. Remember, you weren't born seeking chaos and love. You were taught that chaos is normal and you can unlearn it. So won't you try that and follow me for more.